Hello all, welcome to Shatter Our Souls. It's Novaria here with the first ever indie game on the channel. And, well, what's the occasion? Why is this such a departure? Well, this was actually a game built by a friend. Basement Dweller Games has been building games for about 5-ish years. And so, despite the fact that these games have been being made over the course of multiple years, they all have a certain level of quality to them that I considered unprecedented when I had first played them. Today, we're jumping into the most recent game that Basement Dweller Games has made, and that is none other than Dead Charge. Dead Charge feels at times like it is a Mega Man style game, but with a bit of a twist. Now, while we're going through the tutorial here, let's just quickly go through a couple of the basic controls. You have your B button, which is your jump, ZR, which is your dash, shall you say, Y handles your cannon, and X handles melee. And every single one of these abilities can be changed together in some capacity or another to allow the player to effectively use whatever you need to for your benefit, however it looks, whatever you need. And this is a very important facet to the game. The other part that I really have to get into is that basic platforming, such as wall jumps, are actually rather easy to pull off in this game. And that's fantastic. But the point of the game, and what really sets it apart from other platformers, is, shall we call, its gimmick. In the initial prologue mission there, we got the basics of the controls and were about to get involved with some terrorists. And these terrorists ended up with a nuclear device. Light, Mark II, ended up falling into a, shall we call it, an electrobattery, or electromagnet. There we go. And damaged the battery of Light Mark II. The goal is to breach the island that these terrorists are on, and activate the stolen nuclear device to effectively wipe said island off the map. Which, fantastic. Your goal for this game then becomes to effectively survive. How you do it and what you do depends on you. So, here we have our first ever little look at the map as a whole. Now I'm going to start with Hydraulic Highway, because Hydraulic Highway, first of all, just sounds great, and secondly, because why not? I think the left looks like a great path to start, and we're going to go with that. So, right off the hop, you're going to notice a few things. Number one, the game is a lot more detailed than the initial tutorial has to offer, with water features and even multiple smaller areas that have different gravities. You have enemies and items that are, shall we say, unique for the situation at hand. And I personally think that's great. This is a very polished, very responsive game. And to be clear, I am not editing anything out of this. I want this to be as clear and concise as far as expectations go. My issues with the controls are literally just me not getting the timing down. It's fine, but what you're going to see is that as I play, you're going to notice a significant increase in my personal speed, because this game was built from the ground up with some unique features, that gimmick I mentioned earlier. On the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to notice a bar that is constantly decreasing. For every enemy that you dash through, you recharge the bar and the one at the top. The bar on the left is your life, effectively. And if you do not have if your bar ever runs out, that's it. You die, you reset back to the beginning of the mission. Which, okay, cool, perfect. If you ever fill the bar on the top completely, you get a few moments of immunity mixed with a higher speed stat, so to speak. So honestly, there is a little bit of strategy involved in, do I want to have my ability at this point or at this point? Would it be better for me to have this ability at the beginning of a long stretch of platforming, or in an area where clearing a large section of unclaimed territory from enemies is the name of the game? Ultimately, it is your decision and really your playstyle that is going to dictate how it comes about. Now, this game unironically kind of pushes each player into becoming a speedrunner of the game. And that's because with the constantly declining health bar, you kind of have to continuously try to restock your health, whatever that looks like. And so, it ends up rather working well in the favor of the player to play quickly, play with precision. And that is kind of one of the fantastic parts about this game, is that it took the platformer genre and added a spin to it, a new vision. And while I wouldn't say it's as precise as certain games like Celeste, for example, it is, however, a game that has consistently surprised me in the initial missions here, where I always felt like there was something that I could do to improve, but was never really sure. Now, let's, I suppose, dig into another facet. That little gold coin that you saw me just collect there is one of 3 collectibles. There are 3 per mission. And according to Basement Dweller, the individual who made the game, yes, this was made by one man, by the way, according to them, if you collect all of the coins within a certain set of stages, you'll unlock a bonus mission. This bonus mission is effectively just a challenge mode mission, if you will. But the fact that they went to the degree and the planning necessary to make a challenge mode in and of itself is actually pretty impressive. That the individual thought far enough ahead that there may be players out there who are wanting more from their game. And honestly, I can't necessarily blame them. To me, I've always been an individual who liked challenging games. But this ends up being the type of game that kind of breaks the mold to a degree. It challenges my preconceived notion of what a challenging game is. See, I'm going to be the first to admit, platformers have always been something that I've had a bit of a bias towards. I've always found, at least 95% of the time, that they are incredibly easy games by comparison to most of the games out on the market. And playing this, yeah, it's a platformer. It's a platformer that plays like Mega Man. Has a little hint of Sonic thrown in with the multiple pathways through each mission, but that's the thing. It does so much right that I can't necessarily say that it's a easy game in the same way I could say games like Mario or Sonic are. So, overall, it has actually piqued my interest as well as changed my perspective on a few different games out there. So, I don't know. I suppose take it with a grain of salt. Every game is completely unique after all. But this one in particular is one that had a lot of really unique circumstances and thought processes behind it. And to be clear, most of the enemies in this game thus far, from what I have played, which is only this one mission, has been relatively easy to dispatch. Most of them kind of just exist. They roam around left, right, or up and down kind of thing, and that's pretty much all you get out of them for now. And I think that's a really good thing for the early game, especially when you're dealing with enemies that are Especially when you're dealing with a game on such a tight timer, reality dictates that we want each player to be able to play the game however they see fit. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily work the way we would intend. Now, devlog note here for Basement Dweller. There is one small detail that I would like to mention, and that's the camera. Now, 95% of the time, the camera seems to be following light to a T, which means I have nothing to complain about with that. However, there are a few moments, notably when dealing with screen transitions, that the screen doesn't exactly follow the character as precisely as it could. And that is a small detail, one that as you play isn't going to be as huge of a detail as some other bits maybe, but it is something that I would like to note just as a, hey, I know you're working on a sequel here, and that might be something to look into updating. Beyond that, it's fantastic. I have had absolutely no complaints with any of the controls as a whole. Any issues I've had with playing have directly been the result of my lack of understanding of the game itself. Anyways, back to everybody else here. Overall, one thing that is sticking out to me is just how I suppose the game kind of it incentivizes you to play each path in some way. Now, part of that is due to the nature of having the collectibles available at all, but part of that, I think, also comes down to the fact that each area, it wants you to try to be a speed runner in and of itself. And so, if you're in a situation where you can be a speedrunner or you're doing great in one area or another, that's fantastic. And all the power to you for being said speedrunner, for trying to push for those circumstances. But we also end up in this lovely situation where the game doesn't necessarily follow the trends that I would expect in certain areas. The underwater segments notably seem to have some issues with transitions, but again, one-man team with about a year of development time. And Dead Charge has so far been incredible. And with the multiple pathways system that I keep trying to get to and keep getting distracted halfway through, the multiple pathways system allows for each player and their skill level to be accounted for. An individual who is going to take a more risky path may have a higher skill threshold and be rewarded for it with a shorter run time. Risk versus reward. That is the name of the game when you are playing hardcore games. And this being labeled as a hardcore game, while initially I didn't necessarily see it, I can definitely understand why it would be given that general title. Okay, I think that's the first time I got that coin. Good to know. So, from here on, I'm going to try to focus more so on the upper path. Partially because I believe that the upper path is faster than the lower one. And if I can improve my speed in any way, shape, or form, that's kind of what I want to do. That's kind of where I believe, development-wise, I'm being pushed to. And so, we're going to go on the upper route here. And overall, let's see where this takes me. So that skips the entire underwater segment there, allowing for faster movement, faster everything, in exchange for skipping. Oh, okay, there's an area under here. Where does this take me? Oh, so this skips the area that had the second coin. That actually is probably a little bit faster than the second coin route, but also slightly more dangerous because there's far less healing involved in that pathway. It's a small detail, but definitely one that I wasn't expecting. Cool. Moving on, let's keep going here. Now, my guesstimation at this point, based on how the world seems to be developed, going forward, my goal is going to be upward. I believe that the game is trying to push me towards being at the top of a tower of sorts. I think this is like a water tower, but I can't necessarily say for certain. Anywho, I think this is going to be the second or last run of the day, maybe second last. I feel like I've got the hang of this. Admittedly, me saying that might have just jinxed it, but we're going to attempt a couple more times here. One thing that I am noticing that I don't necessarily think is a bad thing is the run back. Now, this is something that I hear a lot about in games like Dark Souls, where having a run back is good and bad. It allows for more refinement of one's techniques, but also more risk versus reward style gameplay. And I want to acknowledge that for what it is, because I do believe that allowing for a run back type of situation to occur could actually be to the benefit of the game. Now, imagine if every time you died, you ended up back at a checkpoint 30 seconds or less than 10 seconds back. It wouldn't necessarily be what you expect of it. An example of this are games like, I'm going to pick Dark Souls here. If you end up in an area where you're back to the beginning of a region, and it takes 2 minutes to walk back to where you were, that walk back is going to be more dangerous than if you end up 10 seconds before your boss. Because it means, effectively, if you die, congratulations, you fight the boss again. You have a lot more tension when you fight bosses or deal with those circumstances again. Platformers typically have it be that you play the game or the mission right from the beginning again, but most of them also include a life system. Now, I haven't seen anything that dictates a life system within Dead Charge. There might be an ongoing counter in the background that will be like, oh yeah, you died this many times on this mission. But I haven't seen anything to that effect as of yet. This isn't to say that it's a permanent not a thing, but only that I haven't noticed it. And that's okay. Now, this run I'm actually going with the if I make a mistake, oh well, keep going. Because this is meant to be a speedrun style game, I'm trying my darndest to try and showcase, hey, every single section has a little bit of room for growth. We've got the boost going, and okay, so this is that area that I was struggling with earlier. We're going to go a little bit higher up. Looks like there's a roof there. Perfect. And platforming segment? Maybe? I'm going to have to hit something here soon, I think. And with that, we have actually finished the mission. If you like what you see and want to see more Dead Charge, I'd love if you left a like and a subscribe down below. While you're there, check out Basement Dweller's website in the description below.